Dear students, welcome to the MOOC on India's foreign policy in a globalizing world. In this lesson, we are going to discuss about climate change and its implications for India. Main objectives of this lesson are to understand why climate change cannot be addressed without discussing the issue of energy, to know about India's energy security, to know about India's energy cooperation with other countries, to know India's stance in shifting to non-fossil energy endowments, and to learn about India's concern over GHG's emissions. We begin with the first part of the lesson, in which we will discuss about climate change and India's energy security. The discourse on climate change reveals that the humanity would face numerous problems such as rise of sea level, migration of people who live in low-lying areas, environmental hazards like cyclones and droughts, impact on health and crop yield, and water scarcity. These and many such issues would occur in the near future due to greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, hydrofluorocarbons, perfluorocarbons, and sulfur hexafluoride emissions. Climate change poses different challenges for India. Climate change cannot be addressed without discussing the issue of energy. Despite releasing only 7% of global emissions, India is the world's third largest contributor of GHGs. On one hand, India does not want any constraints on its development prospects, and on the other hand, it has become compulsory to mitigate its GHGs emissions through initiatives such as improving energy efficiency, reducing the energy intensity of industrial production, afforestation and wasteland development, population reduction which would improve environmental quality and limit human health hazards from air pollution. We shall discuss how climate change will have an impact on energy consumption, which will lead to an increase in poverty and a reduction of GDP. Climate change and India's energy security. Energy availability is one of the foremost requirements for India's economic growth. Economic reforms, population growth, urbanization, demographic transition, and the growing transport sector in India are resulting in a rapidly increasing demand for more energy. Many people in India still lack access to electricity for their basic needs. 304 million people lacked access to electricity in 2017. The demand for energy consumption is likely to increase in the future. India is largely dependent on coal to meet its energy needs, which produces more carbon dioxide. There would be a major reorientation of its energy strategy if India has to reduce its carbon emissions, that is, a shift from its current coal base to other energy system. Carbon dioxide emission reduction imposes cost in terms of lower GDP and higher poverty. On one hand, India has to provide sufficient commercial energy for growth, and on the other hand, it has to minimize the inequality between urban and rural people's consumption levels of energy. Thus, energy security, which is defined as the availability of energy at all times in various forms, in sufficient quantities and at affordable prices, is linked with both growth and poverty. India has realized the need for a coherent and enduring energy security policy to secure energy imports at affordable prices and without any disturbance. However, it is essential for India to improve the efficiency of coal and electricity use, as well as reduce its dependency on coal, which could reduce emissions. Energy security has become an important concern for most countries in the world. Energy availability is one of the foremost requirements for any state to grow economically and prosper. Thus, safeguarding energy security has become an important element in each country's foreign policy. Energy is being considered the hub of the next and revolutionary technological change transforming our lives. Total global energy consumption will expand by 71% between 2003 and 2030. An increase in energy demand will occur in developing countries that depend on the combustion of hydrocarbons such as coal to produce electricity to meet their energy needs. Carbon dioxide emissions from developing countries are projected to exceed those of industrialized nations. Oil and gas are not as abundantly available as coal. Projections indicate that under current policies and trends, fossil fuels will remain the dominant source of energy in the future. The International Energy Agency forecasts that between 2004 and 2030, fossil fuels will account for 83% of the overall increase in global energy demand. There is a need to find alternative sources of energy that can supply the burgeoning energy needs of the world. Further development and deployment of sustainable energy technologies on an unprecedented scale is needed. The source of carbon dioxide emissions are largely power generation, transformation industry, and transport and other sectors. From 1990 to 2030, it is estimated that the power sector is largely contributing to greater emission of carbon dioxide. Developing countries like India are depending more on coal for power production. The energy intensity is higher by developed countries. On average, each American emits more than 4 times as much carbon dioxide from energy use as a Chinese and as much as 20 Indians. India and other developing countries feel strongly that they are not responsible for the threat of climate change. The unsustainable consumption patterns of the rich industrialized nations in the world are responsible for it. Yet India's economy may be highly vulnerable to climate change. India's energy facilities, particularly those along the coast, are at risk during severe weather events. Interruptions in the energy supply network resulting from these incidents have the potential to lead to extensive power failures. India's farming industry is also susceptible to the impacts of climate change. Shifts in precipitation schedules and temperature can result in diminished crop outputs, impacting the availability of plant material for bioenergy and influencing the economic well-being of rural communities. India's rising temperatures are leading to a growing demand for cooling solutions, especially air conditioning. This increased energy demand during the heat waves strains the energy grid, challenging the energy security measures. The coastal cities and power facilities in India face threats due to escalating sea levels. Fragile infrastructure might result in energy interruptions, necessitating substantial investments for adaptations and projective initiatives. Climate change effects, especially on vital resources like water, can create disputes with neighboring nations. Additionally, energy resources may transform into sources of contention, potentially jeopardizing the stability of energy supplies and overall energy security. Finally, events triggered by climate change, such as rising sea levels, could force people to migrate, internally sparking social tension. Mass migration strain resources, including energy, in the regions where migrants relocate, thereby affecting local energy security. I hope you understood about climate change and India's energy security. We will discuss about India's energy security scenario, disparities in energy consumption and shift in India's energy production in the next video. Thank you.